on the tennis court. The most beautiful player I've ever seen play tennis. Total class act. Loved the game more than perhaps anyone else I've ever seen play tennis.
When you think of billion-dollar athletes, your mind probably goes to basketball icons or global football superstars. But what if I told you one of the most dominant financial empires in sports history was built not on brute force, not on controversy, but on precision, patience, and perfection? This is the story of Roger Federer, the man who turned elegance into over $1 billion. And here's the twist: he didn't just make his fortune on the court. In fact, the majority of his wealth came after the final point was played. From a young prodigy in Switzerland to one of the most marketable athletes in history.
Roger Federer is the United States Open champion.
Federer didn't just win championships, he mastered the business of legacy, positioning himself not just as a player, but as a global asset. Roger Federer was born in Basel, Switzerland in 1981, and from an early age, his talent was undeniable. By the time he turned professional in 1998 at just 17 years old, Federer was already being talked about as the future of tennis. But unlike many young stars, his early career wasn't instant dominance. He had the talent, but not yet the discipline. Emotional outbursts, inconsistency, and a lack of focus held him back in big moments. It wasn't until the early 2000s, around the age of 21 to 22, that everything changed. Federer matured. He refined his mindset, controlled his emotions, and transformed into a completely different competitor. That shift wasn't just about tennis. It was about becoming someone brands could trust, someone audiences could connect with, and someone the world could admire. In 2003, at just 21 years old, Federer won his first Grand Slam at Wimbledon. That victory didn't just launch his career, it ignited a dynasty.
And thanks to everybody, it's great!
Congratulations, Roger Federer!
Over the next several years, Federer dominated tennis in a way few athletes have ever dominated any sport. Between 2004 and 2007, he won 11 Grand Slam titles and held the world #1 ranking for a record 237 consecutive weeks.
The 2006 United States Open champion, three-time champion.
By his mid-20s, Federer wasn't just the best player in the world. He was becoming a global symbol of excellence. His playing style, smooth, effortless, almost artistic, made him stand out in a sport built on precision. And that uniqueness translated directly into value. Over the course of his career, Federer earned roughly $130 million in prize money. That number alone would place him among the highest-paid tennis players of all time. But in the world of elite athletes, prize money is often just the surface. Because the real money isn't earned through competition, it's earned through connection. Federer understood early that his image, his demeanor, and his consistency made him more than an athlete. He became a brand, and once that happened, his earning potential multiplied exponentially. At the peak of his career, Federer became the face of global luxury. Brands didn't just want him for performance, they wanted him for identity. Rolex, Mercedes-Benz, Credit Suisse, and Nike all aligned themselves with Federer because he represented something rare: trust at scale. He wasn't controversial. He wasn't polarizing. He was reliable, refined, and universally respected. That made him one of the safest and most valuable endorsement bets in the world. But then came the decision that changed everything. In 2018, at the age of 36, Federer made a move that shocked the sports world. He left Nike, a company he had been with for over 20 years, and signed a 10-year, $300 million deal with Uniqlo. No performance bonuses, no requirements to win championships, just guaranteed money based on his brand alone. Nike reportedly didn't match the offer, believing Federer was nearing the end of his career. But Uniqlo saw something different. They saw longevity. They saw global appeal that would outlast his playing days. And they were right. That deal marked a shift in how elite athletes approached business. Federer wasn't just selling performance anymore. He was selling permanence. Even as his time on the court began to slow, his income didn't. In fact, in several years late in his career, Federer earned over $90 million annually, with more than 90% of that coming from endorsements. He was making more money off the court than almost anyone in sports history, proving that brand equity, when built correctly, doesn't decline with age, it compounds. But the most important move of Federer's career didn't come from a sponsorship. It came from ownership thinking. In 2019, Federer invested in a Swiss sneaker company called On Running, and this wasn't a typical athlete endorsement deal where a name gets slapped onto a product. Federer took an equity stake. He became a partner. He helped design shoes, influenced branding decisions, and aligned the company's identity with his own global image. This was a strategic shift, from being paid to promote to being paid to own. When On Running went public in 2021, the company was valued in the billions. Federer's stake was estimated to be worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And just like that, he crossed into a different financial category. This wasn't endorsement money anymore. This was equity-driven wealth, the kind of wealth that grows while you sleep, the kind of wealth that doesn't depend on appearances or performance, the kind of wealth that defines billionaires. As Federer entered his late 30s, injuries began to take a toll. Multiple knee surgeries limited his ability to compete, and long stretches away from the court became more frequent. But here's what's remarkable: his income didn't drop. In some years, Federer was still the highest paid athlete in the world despite barely playing. That's when you know the system is working. That's when you know the business model is bigger than the sport itself. And part of what made Federer's brand so powerful was the era he competed in. His rivalries with players like Rafael Nadal and Novak Djokovic didn't just elevate tennis, they globalized it. These weren't just matches, they were events. Federer versus Nadal at Wimbledon in 2008 is often considered one of the greatest matches of all time. And every one of those moments increased Federer's visibility, expanded his audience, and strengthened his global appeal. Rivalries didn't hurt his brand, they amplified it. Federer officially retired in 2022 at the age of 41, closing one of the most iconic careers in sports history: 20 Grand Slam titles, over 1,200 career wins. But beyond the numbers, his real achievement was something much bigger. He redefined what it means to be an athlete in the modern era. He showed that you don't have to be the loudest or the most controversial to be the most valuable. You just have to be consistent, strategic, and aligned. When you look at the full picture, Federer generated over $1.5 billion in total career earnings, and the majority of that came off the court. That's the key takeaway. While many athletes focus on maximizing their playing contracts, Federer focused on maximizing his identity. He chose brands carefully. He avoided overexposure. He maintained a level of exclusivity that made every partnership more valuable. And when the opportunity came, he shifted into ownership. That's the blueprint. And now, you're seeing other athletes follow it. LeBron James building equity in media and sports teams. Michael Jordan turning ownership into billions. David Beckham leveraging branding into global business ventures. But Federer was one of the cleanest examples of this transition, from athlete to brand to investor. Today, Federer's net worth sits well into the billion-dollar range, and more importantly, his income continues. His endorsements remain active, his investments continue to grow, and his brand remains one of the most respected in the world. He doesn't need to play to earn. He built something that operates independently of his physical ability. Roger Federer didn't just play tennis. He built a financial machine based on trust, timing, and transformation. He understood that talent gets you noticed, but strategy keeps you paid. And in a world where most athletes peak in their 20s, Federer found a way to peak financially in his late 30s and beyond. Because in the end, the real goal isn't to be the highest paid athlete while you're playing, it's to become the athlete whose money never stops working. And Roger Federer may be the greatest example of that we've ever seen.